Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I've already called this meeting to order, so we'll start with 2.0. Superintendent Macaluso, do you have any corrections or modifications to the agenda?
Thank you, President Voss. At this time, there are no corrections or modifications to the agenda.
Then I will move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
I'll call the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi?
Aye.
Mr. Farrow?
Aye.
Judge Mays?
Aye.
Mr. Voss?
Aye.
Dr. Wright?
Aye.
And with that, we'll move into our work session. Superintendent Macaluso.
Thank you, President Voss. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Robert Lawson, and he's going to introduce us to the team that he has to talk to us about food service management company. Mr. Lawson?
Good afternoon, Superintendent Macaluso, President Voss, and members of the board. This afternoon, I want to provide the board with an update regarding the Food Service Management Company RFP process. As the board is aware, the district has been engaged in the RFP process for the past few months regarding a food service management company and the possibility that the district may choose to contract for nutrition service operations. CDE has a tightly regulated contracting process for the services due to the federal USDA and state of Colorado dollars that fund those operations. As a part of that RFP process, the district held interviews this past week with 4 food service contracting firms that had submitted proposals to our RFP. The interview committee panel included Superintendent Macaluso, Interim Nutrition Services Director Dana. Part of that RFP process, the district held interviews this past week with 4 food service contracting firms that had submitted proposals to our RFP. The interview committee panel included Superintendent Macaluso, Interim Nutrition Services Director Dana Elkins Green, Assistant Superintendent of HR Eric DeCicero, Chief Financial Officer David Horner, board members Barbara Clementi and Tommy Farrell, Purchasing Agent Tina Branham, and also myself. From the evaluation of those interviews, the committee has recommended Southwest Food Service Excellence, or SFE, as the top firm to move forward in our process and present here today. Lastly, per the CDE food service contracting requirements for this RFP process, and also as with the earlier committee interview process, the board can focus any clarification questions from the SFE presentation today and their submitted proposal. We will provide the board an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. I would now like to turn this meeting over to Andres Montoya and his team from SFE for their presentation today.
Hi, thank you very much, Superintendent Macaluso, President Voss, and members of the board. We want to take a moment to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present to you what we envision as our partnership with Pueblo D60. So my name is Andre. I'm the Director of Business Development for SFE. And with us today, we have several members of our leadership team with us, including Mike, who's our VP of Sales, Chris, who is our VP of Operations and Strategy, Sarah, who is our VP of Marketing Communications, Jamie, who is our Chief People Officer, Kristen, who's our Director of Nutrition Compliance, Chef Josh, and last but not least, our CEO and President, Chef Monty Staggs. And with that, I will hand it over to Mike.
Awesome. Thank you, Andres. Are you going to pull the deck up on the screen?
Yeah, I was trying to share my screen and it was not allowing me to. Just wanted to make sure I had the rights.
You should be able, if you click present now in the bottom right hand, you should be able to do that.
Can we see the PowerPoint on the screen?
We can.
Okay, very good.
Okay, Chris, for some reason I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to go off memory here.
Yeah, you might want it in presentation mode.
Okay, well, while we're getting set up, again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. I'm excited about this opportunity. I have my son and a lot of my money go to Colorado State, about 3 hours north of you guys, so I'm excited about this opportunity. We want to do just a brief introduction of SFE and what our culture and values are. But most importantly, we want to spend time talking about our customized program and what's important to Pueblo D60 and what we learned along the way in the process. So what we learned was what's important to you. You know, we were really impressed by the D60 FoodWorks branding, and we really want to continue and enhance that, and you'll see that in our presentation today. A focus on healthier eating, equity among students, something that's really important to us, engaging students and really getting their feedback, especially in the child nutrition department, and then really using innovation to help drive participation in the schools in a lot of various ways we'll talk about today. So the SFE promise, this is very important to us. We want every student to be excited about eating at school and ensuring they are nourished to learn. You know, we view our role in a lot of the objectives that were on the previous slide as fueling your students for successful learning. So there's four common themes that you'll hopefully take away today is we are a food first company. We are culinary based. Our CEO is actually a chef. I know it's a crazy idea, a food company led by a chef, but unfortunately we are the only one like that in our industry. We don't do other services or serve other markets. All we do is serve K-12 child nutrition, and that's where our focus is. Innovation is key as well. You know, the great food is awesome, but how do we deliver that and market that to students and parents is also a key to our program. You're also going to get a sense of this is customized. We do not have a cookie cutter approach. What we put together for Pueblo D60 is specific to you, and you'll see some of those elements in the presentation today. And then most importantly, compassionate leadership. You know, we can't be successful without the hourly staff in the buildings, and we really have an emphasis on training and developing them and hopefully helping them advance and grow in their careers. So very quickly, I wanted to give you a heat map of SFE's growth throughout the nation. We are the fastest food service management company, fastest growing in the nation. And the reason for that we hear over and over again is because what we talk about resonates with students, staff, parents, administration, and boards. You know, we started in Arizona 16 years ago, and we've grown to over 165 school district partners across the nation. So just to give you an idea of our growth trajectory. You can jump to the next slide. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to talk about some of the key points in our proposal. Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thank you, members of the board, administration. Thank you so much for the hospitality and the opportunity to present to you today. So to talk a little bit more about those four themes that Mike mentioned on those previous slides, I hope that these four key areas jumped out to you both in the proposal process, but also during this presentation. So first and foremost, an SFE guarantee, always a participation increase in your program. We obviously drive this through high-end food that students love, but also through strategic line placement and removing those bottlenecks from your service lines. We aim at making school food less traditional. We do this in a number of ways through curbside meals, alternate points of sale service across the entire campus, and of course, outdoor concepts as well. Second, an increase in participation obviously generates a better bottom line surplus for your school district. Bottom line surpluses matter because it allows your general fund to offset a higher indirect cost rate to food service, keeping your classroom dollars in the classroom. We're always constrained on an annual basis with the latest budget cut from here or there. We want to make sure that we drive higher end revenues that result in a bottom line surplus for the district. We use this, of course, to expand that wonderful D60 FoodWorks brand into more schools. We think it's a great program, and we want to get it into more schools. Third, top level innovation that plays off the theme of that D60 FoodWorks. We have an investment offering of nearly $200,000 that we want to utilize the space provided and expand dining areas into places where students truly hang out outside of the cafeterias, whether that be an outdoor barbecue station, smoker, away from the cafe, convenience stores, or stations like the latest hot dog or burger cart on a street corner that you might find. Some of these solutions, obviously, we've dreamt up because they're just awesome. But quite frankly, they remove those bottlenecks that we experience in our lunch lines each and every day with constrained bell schedules. We find one of the best things and results that come out of this is students are back in class faster. Principals and teachers obviously are incredibly excited about that. And then finally, we want your district, the ladies and gentlemen that work in the food service department, to be incredibly proud of the work that they do. They work incredibly hard, and we want to make sure that that message resonates not just inside of the school district, but of course out in the community. Utilizing the team that you'll hear about here shortly, we will work tirelessly to engage the community on behalf of you and the ladies and gentlemen inside of the school district, utilizing our team of chefs and dietitians. So a little bit about that team. First and foremost, our resident district manager works in concert with your food service team and your administration, and certainly the school board. We're excited for D60 to be a premier flagship school district for us, and therefore this person reports directly to our vice president of operations. What this means is it gives you direct access to our executive management team. Second, our director of culinary innovation. This person is an executive chef placed inside the school district, doesn't service other school districts nearby, down the street in other states or markets. He solely focuses on Pueblo Schools culinary program. This person will focus strictly on training and recipe development internally and making sure your product is the best possible product we can give your students. Third, our registered dietitian, again, same thing, an on-site registered dietitian that Kristen will speak about here shortly, but all things nutrition education, training, and doing all those great things that she loves. Fourth, we're super excited that Sarah will talk about here in a little bit, our director of marketing and communications. She'll harness all those wonderful things that we just talked about on how to get the word out, not just inside of food service or the school district, but the community as a whole. And then finally, we have an associate director of food service who supports the daily operation of our food service program. So we completely understand that proof is in the pudding, and we wanted to kind of show you a couple of case studies that are similar sized districts to you to show you that we do exactly what we say we're going to do. First and foremost, the one you see here on the screen is Dysart Unified School District, a former Sodexo partner, but you can obviously see the program growths of bottom line surplus to the school district of nearly 4x and a participation growth of nearly 3x. All of our bottom line surpluses are driven through an increase in participation and top line revenues. Second, Sunnyside, another similar school district to you, a former Chartwell's food service management company, similar type scenario, a profit growth in the food service program of nearly 5x and a growth in those participation numbers of nearly 3x. So I'm going to briefly stop and pause, and hopefully a video plays shortly, because I know that it's only me saying this, so I'd love for you to hear something from one of our clients.
SFE made a liar out of me. And the reason is I went to trade shows and I saw the presentation that they had for the customers, and that's exactly what I thought it was. Food for the customers, the people at the trade show. But then I was able to have a catering from SFE and several other management companies as well, and found that they do that trade show experience for our students, for the staff, for the faculty in our school district. And it's great tasting food, it's restaurant quality food, and it's 90% made from scratch. And that's what really intrigued us to contact SFE. And in July of 2019, we became partners with SFE. And they have taken that trade show experience and translated that into our cafeterias. The most important thing for us is participation by our students. And what I can tell you is since we transitioned to SFE, we are serving 6,000 more meals per month than what we did last year per month. So on average, consider that, 6,000 meals more than what we served last year. Our students are participating, our students are enjoying the food, and our community and our parents are happy because they no longer have to bring food from home. Most importantly, we feel SFE is a true partner to what we want to do. We want to take our food quality and create a program that is innovative on the cutting edge, and SFE has partnered with us and has done a tremendous job in leading us in that direction. And I would highly recommend SFE to any school district that is ready to transform not only their food, but their food service program with quality food, quality products for their students, for their staff, and their community.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Let's see if we can. Now I will turn it over to Sarah.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Dr. Garcia is always a great testimony to follow, especially when we want to talk about innovation. And Pueblo D60 is certainly no stranger to innovation. I think our entire team was really enthusiastic when we saw the D60 FoodWorks branding, but I don't think anybody was nearly as excited as I was. You know, it's truly a unique concept to the industry. We partner with districts across the country, and to find a district that values the student experience so much that they invested in a school nutrition brand is truly not common. And, you know, our hope is that our customized programs that we've developed for Pueblo, you know, is truly aiming to continue to bring that branding to life through even more innovation, you know, from digital marketing to new service models that are all aimed at one goal, which is driving student participation. And we know that reaching students where they are means going digital. With D60 FoodWorks powered by SFE, that means mobile ordering that allows students to skip the line. It's mobile menus that allow students to filter for allergens and nutrition information. It allows them to provide us direct feedback, as well as in-cafe digital signage. In addition to the technology, you know, we know that today's students want great food, but they want it to grab it and go as quickly as possible to get back to their friends, back to their books, you know, back to what's important to them. So with that, SFE is thrilled to introduce the D60 FoodWorks C-Store. In these convenience stores, students can choose from freshly prepared sandwiches, salads, wraps, yogurt parfaits, fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as packaged snacks and bottled beverages. And the great thing is these C-stores are accessible whether students are free, reduced, or paid. We have reimbursable meals available here, as well as a la carte snacks, so everyone has access to the convenience. So and it's truly the ultimate in convenience brought directly to the high school students. But we certainly know that quick and convenience isn't exclusive to high schoolers. So for Pueblo middle schoolers, we've introduced mobile stations that can be leveraged for things like breakfast after the bell, curbside meals, and alternate points of service for lunch. Like Chris mentioned earlier, it's about eliminating those pinch points, improving speed of service, getting students in and out quickly with a great tasting meal. In addition, we'll introduce mobile stations at each of the high schools that will be equipped with grills and smokers to have a fresh barbecue concept. And all of this, of course, will be powered by SFE's consolidated technology, and that brings digital menu boards, multi-language menu translations, a comprehensive web-based recipe database that has online production records, inventory management systems, and over 3,000 student-approved recipes to choose from. It also allows for direct accounting systems that will interface with D60's POS system to make sure that we have proper meal counting and claiming. You might find yourself asking, how do we bring all of this to life? Chris alluded to this role earlier. I'm really excited to share with you that we've included in our proposal a dedicated marketing and communications director, and they'll work exclusively for Pueblo D60. In their role, this leader is going to be wired directly to the district, and their goal is to activate and promote the D60 brand, both in the schools as well as the larger community. They'll drive community communication and engagement to ensure Pueblo residents know all the great things that are happening in the school cafes. And finally, they'll build Pueblo's social and digital marketing presence to reach students and the community right where they are, which is usually in front of their phones. And so with that, I'm going to pass off to Jamie to talk about the great team.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see everyone, even if it's digital. I hope that we do get to meet in person one day. But as the Chief People Officer here at SFE, I just want to talk to you a little bit about your people. One of the things that we've learned and know about transition and change in food service venue is it's potentially the hardest on the food service workers. If the communication isn't good, it will make the workers really uneasy, and we don't want that. We get that. Change is stressful, and we want to ensure they're very comfortable knowing that we'll take care of them throughout the transition. So we've made it a point to put in place a detailed transition plan. It includes direct communication letter to each employee once we've been awarded the district. And this letter is really an introduction of SFE and a promise to the staff that will bring them over at their same rate of pay, their same role. We'll try our best to keep them in their favored location. We'll give them direct access to our on-site leadership team to ask questions, and questions will arise so they can get immediate answers and they're not worried about it. We also have a live transition meeting before their formal training. And this is where we review our benefits package, help them sign into our system, help them log in and understand where their personal information is kept, where their benefits, anything about their pay is at their fingertips. Again, everything, all of this is at their fingertips, all digital as well as in the modem in on-site. They'll immediately have access to all their time, their personal information, everything. So on the next slide, I want you to feel comfortable that we'll immediately recognize AFSCME, the union in place, and quickly work with them to ratify a new contract with SFE, keeping the employees whole. We'll offer top-of-the-line training to all employees prior to SFE services beginning. They won't be on their own. We have a lot of new things that they're going to learn, new ways to cook, new ways to do things. They love cooking anyways. We're going to teach them the SFE way so they'll feel comfortable on opening day and beyond. And really, like Chris mentioned earlier, because Pueblo is a larger district, we'll send a crew of extra resources from around the country to help aid in this training startup and really ensure a successful rollout of the new SFE service. We can't afford to let this not be successful. So we do promote from within also as much as we can. SFE is the fastest growing food service management company out there, which means plenty of opportunity for all employees who are interested. We genuinely are a team, and we take that seriously, and we're going to set them up for success. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Kristen to talk a little bit about nutrition programs and compliance.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm part of a team of dietitians and nutritionists who focus on quality assurance and compliance measures that ensure the integrity of your district's food service program. Our team reviews every menu before they are used in the district to ensure they meet all compliance standards. Our team also provides training, compliance measures, and support to ensure that the planned menu is served correctly and that the production records are compliant. Through this support, we help ensure that our districts are audit ready at all times. Each district has a dedicated compliance monitor, such as myself, to help them prepare for a successful audit. So far, SFE has assisted with over 500 district audits, and we are extremely proud to report that we have had 100% compliance and no fiscal findings since the company's founding. We have a wide variety of menu options to meet the needs of every student in your district. We understand that every student is different, so we ensure we plan menus to meet everyone's needs, whether that's the athletes or students who need breakfast after the bell. All of our customers are able to access our menus online from their desktop or mobile device. Through this app, they can look at the nutrition information or filter for allergens. Our nurses love it because rather than having to go and look at the carbohydrates on food labels for a diabetic student, they have that information right at their fingertips or on their computer. There's an awesome feature for the parent of a student who is allergic to wheat or soy who wants to figure out what her daughter can eat during the lunch day. Parents and students can figure out what they can eat ahead of time so there's no stress going into lunch. We have a wide variety of programs to offer nutrition and culinary education to our students. We have farmers markets where students can try new fruits and vegetables. And at these events, students learn more about various nutrition topics and the farm-to-table connection. It's a great way to get the community involved and partner with local vendors or farmers to welcome them into our schools so students can learn about the produce they grow. In your neighboring state of New Mexico, we partner with local growers and producers to bring in as much local produce as possible. So we really put an emphasis on locally sourced goods whenever possible. We also partner with the community to put on health fairs to provide another avenue for school districts to incorporate wellness into their community. We partner with community organizations such as doctors' offices, fire departments, and the Parks and Recs department to provide valuable wellness information to students, teachers, and parents. These organizations provide information on a variety of topics such as medical services, nutrition education, mental well-being, and physical activity. It's a great way to connect the community with the local resources around them. My personal favorite is the Roving Chef program, where students get to work one-on-one with our district chef to learn more about fresh from scratch cooking and get hands-on experience in the kitchen. It's a great way to provide nutrition education because we talk about the health benefits of the food while they're touching and cooking them. We also have a nutrition education program that was developed by our dietitians that provides a variety of ways for students to learn about nutrition. We have resources ranging from handouts that can be posted in the school to nutrition classes that your on-site dietitian can provide to students at any grade level. We're prepared to make a $10,000 investment in nutrition education in your district. We really value student feedback and ensure that the food on the menus is student approved. We love holding taste tests for students so they can try new foods and we can hear exactly what they want on their menus. We also get feedback through various student surveys to ensure that the menu items are student approved. We have surveys for every grade level to ensure that we're getting the best feedback possible. Students let us know what kinds of culinary cuisine they want to see on the menus and we make it happen. We can add regional favorites, which we've done for many districts, since each district has their own unique flavor and preferences. By adding student-approved items to the menus, we make sure students are able to pick items they love so they are fueled for success for the day. We have an amazing team of people focusing on securing grants for our district. They're involved in the entire process from the beginning to end, so it is stress-free for your district. The grant team will help locate the grants, walk you through the application process, and follow up with any tasks that need to be completed after it has been awarded. This team has seen tremendous success, and so far this year, we have received over $3.5 million of grant funding for our districts. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Monty.
Hey, thank you so much. Board members, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And I know this is an extremely important decision for you and one that I'm proud to say your selection committee is being very thorough in. So, we are honored to be a part of this process with you. As Mike introduced earlier, I am the CEO, but more importantly for you and for your district, I'm a food guy. I'm a chef. That's why our core value proposition is food first, because that's exactly what the students care about. If it's not good food, if they don't want to come down and eat it, no matter what we do, they're not going to. So our philosophy is really, it's counter to that of all of our competitors, but it's what we believe in. It's about providing great food that drives participation. Whereas our counterparts, our competitors in the marketplace, are more focused on saving their way to profitability. It's just not our business model. And I think that's a real reason that we have been the fastest growing food service management company across the nation for the last 5 years. It's not that there is a silver bullet, but if there were one, it's about great food. Kristen mentioned we survey students and we ask for feedback all the time. And that is so very important in what we do. And I think it's lost in the industry. It makes us successful. It makes you successful. We actually go out there and we taste test kids as much as they will let us. We let them give us feedback on a monthly basis so that we can build a menu on a monthly basis that is made up of their selections, their choices. We don't have cycle menus. We don't prescribe to that, because if I asked each one of you to eat in the same restaurant for 180 days and we had the same menu for that entire time, chances are you're not going to want to come down and eat. Our kids are no different. So we make sure that we're menuing as they tell us what they want. Again, I can guess what you want for lunch, but if I ask you and then I actually provide it, chances are you're going to come eat with us. Our kids are no different. You go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I'm going to walk you through a few, and listen, our team here, I'm so proud of each one of them. They have certainly illustrated and articulated how we are about the food, the quality, the support, and everything that goes into it. But I wanted to share with you some, these are not glamour shots. These are actual photos from our districts of our chefs hand-making burger patties. Why? Because they taste better. If you get one that's frozen out of a box, pre-cooked, it's not so good. But if you can take, ground beef and hand form them and have those cooking and the smoke and just like when you go into a restaurant, it makes the difference. And that's what our students tell us over and over. Go ahead and go to the next one. These are just some social media posts that come out of our schools, and it's everything from Baja fish tacos to, a Cuban panini melt to, I believe it's a Chilaquiles breakfast offering. So, again, spectacular food, but this is not that SFE out of some corporate office wrote these menus and laid those in there. In each one of these districts, those students picked those selections, and that's why they were menued. Go ahead and go to the next. Again, you see a few more, everything from students craving, unique options on burgers to the big stack to loving, wings. Who doesn't? I think this was around Super Bowl time. We have garlic teriyaki wings and all sorts of different flavors, as well as even empanadas handmade, again, from scratch, because it makes a difference. When in doubt, when we can take the time to make things on our own, the quality just increases dramatically. Too often in K-12 over the last few years, it has been one where everybody has to buy frozen foods and they just heat those up and put them out there. That's not cooking, that's reheating. So we make sure we take the time to train your staff. And they don't start out, day one cooking everything from scratch. That would be overwhelming to the staff, and that's not fair. So we phase in all of these menus over a period of time so that they are very comfortable and competent and can start elevating the quality of the products that they put out there. Go ahead. Culinary involvement. Folks, everything from catering, it pains me when I see, Jimmy John's walking through the front door of an administration building. We can provide those things. We have chefs on our staff, chefs in your district, and it's just what we do. Fundraising programs, special events, all those things, we love those. We want to be your partner. And that's a key word that I think is very important to take a note of. Anybody can be hired to put food on a kid's plate. That's a vendor. We want to be a partner. All the things that Kristen rattled off about, health fairs and farmers markets and, from the special programs, fundraising events, back to school, that's a partner. We want to invest in the community, into your district, and become part of that community with you. Go ahead. So why SFE? As Chris mentioned, it's $1 million no risk guarantee to you. You're going to get very well trained, happy and engaged staff that, as I said, we bring in resources, tons and tons. Josh is on this call. Josh will be part of the team coming there to make sure that everybody understands how to do these new cooking techniques and that they're very comfortable, along with many other ladies and gentlemen, to ensure success from day one. We will make sure that we believe in it and we love seeing it, the D60 FoodWorks branding. I think that is special, and it is not a sense where you hire SFE and we come in and just do it, everything's the SFE way. We partner with you, and that's why we want to embrace the branding that you've already invested in and propel that to give you more resource, more infrastructure, and the expertise that we make sure that not only is this a wonderful program, it is the best program. It is a flagship in the ground for us, but more importantly, we want you to be the envy of all districts around you. Last but not least, you're going to get an extremely strong management team that has K-12 tenure as well as SFE tenure to ensure that you are absolutely taken care of. We will make sure, and as Chris also mentioned, you will have a direct line to our executive leadership. It is something that is worth noting, and certainly you understand this. We currently do not have a partner in the state of Colorado. That shouldn't scare you, because fact of the matter is we have to live up to every one of these promises or we will fail and not be able to grow within the state. We will divert all resources, and that's why I am talking to you today. to make sure that you hear it from me, we will back up all of our promises to you and ensure that you are successful no matter what. Go to the next slide. And with that, folks, we thank you for your time. I am happy to answer questions or pair those questions off to the experts on the phone, but let us know how we can add more clarification for you.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Dr. Wright, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you, President Voss. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Montoya, and your team. I appreciate the presentation today, and I do have some questions for clarification, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and some of the questions I have, you covered parts of it, and I may just want to confirm what I think I heard. For instance, if you were to receive the contract, acknowledging you don't have it right now, but
yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you were, I just want to know, you mentioned a transition plan. So based on the criteria I saw on page number 5, page 19, number 5, with your minimum hiring standards, can you confirm that the current employees would retain their current positions, the time they've worked, their pay and their leave and their benefits, if we were to select your company?
Ma'am, I'm going to hand that off to our Chief People Officer. She seems to get a little upset when I start answering the HR questions. So, Jane, do you mind jumping in?
Of course, yes. We when we were looking at this district, we very much looked over that in a big way, because we want to make sure that people are whole. It's not their fault that you may be switching the venues on how you feed the children. And so we want to make sure that they continue in their same role, their same rate of pay, their same level, their same number of hours. Now, with the benefits, I don't know what benefits they have right now, but I guarantee you we have benefits that will suffice and match anything that they have today. And we'll make sure that they remain whole.
Okay, so you're saying yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was just going to say yes.
Thank you. All right, secondly, I have like a few questions.
Go for it.
So secondly, and I'm learning about this myself. The role of the union. So I heard you say something in one of your little excerpts. So if you were to acquire the contract, what role would the AFSCME, what role would that current union play in this process, and what would be their future role in the processes without collective bargaining agreements?
Jamie?
Yeah. So what typically happens, and this is very common for us, is that when we inherit a union or employees that are represented by a union. So what typically happens, as soon as we're awarded the contract in the district, the union will reach out and say, please recognize us as the bargaining unit for this group of people. And we immediately respond and say, yes, we recognize you. And then what happens is we get together and we ratify the contract, and it'll be between SFE and AFSCME. And we do that as quickly as possible. We generally take the contract as is. There may be some things that change if we have one benefit more than they did or something else, but those are minor things. That usually happens very quickly.
Okay, so I did write the word recognize down. So I'm glad you said that word. I said, what does recognize mean? So you're saying recognize means that you'd reach out to them for ratifying and bargaining. Is this a future practice as well, or a one-time practice?
Oh, no, we will. So what happens, I don't know what year you are in your contract. We generally like to do 3-year contracts with all unions, but we'll honor the year that you're in currently. And so if it's year 2, next year we'll re-bargain again. So we continue to bargain with them and recognize them as the voice for the people.
Okay, thank you. So how would you recruit and maintain staff for the B60 schools?
So we absolutely have a recruiter. The on-site team, you'll have an HR manager that will be mainly in charge of recruiting. We will post ads. We'll follow any background check information that is needed we have a standard, but sometimes the school has a standard too. We follow whichever is the highest. And we get as many people in and to fill positions as possible, as quickly as possible.
And maintain?
And maintain.
Okay. I just wanted to see your steps in how to not only recruit them, but to keep the staff. So you mentioned, which I thought was very good, you mentioned about the farmers market. And so my question, you talked about partnership with communities. So will your food sources, will that include vendors from our community, like as partners, like local Pueblo Farms and Pueblo Food Project? How would you partner with those local businesses?
Well, first question, would we partner with them? Absolutely. As Kristen mentioned, we have a huge local food sourcing initiative in New Mexico, as well as Arizona and Texas. It's really just built into our program, ma'am. So we reach out to state agencies, departments of agriculture, and identify those farmers and in the immediate vicinity, then recognize crops and alignment with timing and those sorts of things. But we reach out way in advance and put those in touch with our procurement initiatives so that we can identify those and be on their radar. But even further, in these farmers markets and in many places we even install garden programs. We partner with the local farmers and producers to help us in those initiatives. So it is a collaborative effort from day one.
Okay, thank you. And I do appreciate you providing this clarity.
No problem.
Regarding capital assets, I mean, one of the questions that I remember before discussing was the responsibility of replacing equipment in the kitchen. Whose responsibility would that be, D60 or yours?
Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly we have an initial investment in capital of roughly $200,000 with an annual generated surplus of $1 million. You have an allowance from the state of Colorado of 3 months operating funds were on hand. So our main objective is to start growing your bottom line surpluses and then help you through those fun times of having too much money on hand and starting to replace the capital items in some of your older and outdated schools and equipment, as well as, one of our main initiatives is, we recognize some of your schools aren't fully working kitchens to start scratch cooking day one. And so we want to make sure that that's on our objective every single year. Procurement, all that stuff, it runs through the food service program. But our initial investment of $200K is on our side. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's on your side to replace. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. But on an ongoing basis, you have a spend down that you have to achieve in your food service fund that you'd be responsible for.
Okay, thank you. So, and I was glad to hear the comments you made about students. And one of the things I heard you say were about promoting equity among students. So how would you promote equity among students?
Chris?
Monty,
are you going to hand it off? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. We have, of course, free and reduced policies that I think Kristen would be glad to speak to, as well as our marketing initiatives that we have to ensure that all students are accessing the exact same meals via our C stores or whatever local policy you have on hand. Kristen,
you want to add some clarity?
Sure. In a variety of our innovations, such as the C-Store or mobile ordering, we've taken steps along the way to ensure that anyone on a free or reduced status still meets the requirements to receive those benefits. So they can come to a C-Store, make a reimbursable meal. We've built those constructs within the mobile ordering platform, and it's seamless. And then I also like to get ahead of them and educate those students so that they understand how to walk through that and still have their benefits applied.
Okay, thank you. I just maybe a couple more questions. You mentioned about, during the COVID, one of the great things our nutrition department did was to provide meals to students and families in the community. Is that something that you would continue, that practice?
Yes, ma'am. As waivers permit, absolutely.
Okay, then you mentioned about, I'm glad about the students giving the feedback too. And I know you'll use wisdom. So
we are too.
Candy, you won't just give them candy. I got you. But The last question deals with growth and finance. Who receives the profit?
Growth and finance.
The school district.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, you know, when Monty was speaking about Jimmy John's walking in the front door, that catering that he's referring to, please let us, the food service department, cater that meal. It keeps your funds that, you know, that principal fund that's going out to Jimmy John's. Instead, it keeps it in the school district to allow for, you know, classroom spending to not continually get compressed on an annual basis like you're probably currently, as every other school district is, experiencing today.
Well, I want to thank you very much for answering my questions, and I'm very proud to know that two of our board members, Board Clementi and Board Member Farrell, served on that committee. So I look forward to hearing their comments regarding this because I respect what they have to say. So thank you so much for your time today and for coming for your presentation. Thank you, President Voss.
Thank you.
Judge Mace.
Thank you, President Voss. And I too want to thank you very much for your presentation today. I find it to be very thorough. I don't have any questions, but I do want to make one observation, and it's because you mentioned on a couple of occasions that you have a real presence in New Mexico. And I just need to say that Pueblo chili is king, and Hatch chili is somewhere down the line, but it's definitely not in the same league with Pueblo chili. And would love the participation of our local farmers and other folks involved in this. I may sound a little biased, but I'm not. Thank you.
I think you're entitled, and it was duly noted. I did not say Hatch chilies once, so.
Mr. Farrell.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Judge Mays, for making a point that I was going to make too about the Pueblo chilies. So I do appreciate that you stepped in to do that part. I want to thank you, all of you, for coming and not only clarifying for those of us on the board what your vision for D60 FoodWorks would look like, but also being able to share this so that our community who are either watching this streaming now online or will go back in the next couple of days to see what your vision looked like. I really appreciate you being here and sharing that. You know, anytime you look at outsourcing a service, there's a lot of big questions that come up. And for me, looking in this situation, the first two are the quality of the food. And then the second one is what happens to our current employees, our current people who are on the front line working hard and keeping them whole, as we've heard a couple times. So I really want to thank Chef Monty. You've done a great job presenting what your quality of food looks like. And you talked about eating at the same restaurant every day for 110 days. I think if it was a cafeteria with some of those foods that we've seen in these pictures, I'd be willing to do that. And Jamie, thank you for talking about the employees and what that transition would look like. Because that, I think, in that order, those are the top most important things for me. Is the quality of the food, and we're nourishing the kids, and we're having them ready for a education, and that we're able to support and keep our employees whole. And I think that those are, I'm really glad that Dr. Wright asked the questions that she asked that helped put some of those points back up into the priorities of what we were looking at. And I know that Dr. Wright also mentioned I was on the RFP committee, so if our fellow board members do have any other questions of me, or I'm sure Board Member Clementi would be happy to speak to that as well. But I don't have any questions. I was just highlighting the things that I was pleased to hear. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Clementi.
Thank you, President Voss, and thank you, Board Member Farrell for your comments. A philosophy that I share. I have a couple kind of scattershot questions that I just jotted down as I listened to the report again, and again. I also thank you for coming and sharing this with us, with the entire board, and with our community. You mentioned training for employees. Is that training expected to be on their own time, or would that be a paid training?
It's paid.
Thank you. How many people from your organization will you send to District 60 to get this adventure on its feet and started, if you did get the contract?
Chris, have you worked out the transition?
Yes.
plan?
So we currently we have scheduled to attend the startup and transition 12 people in addition to the 5-member on-site management team. And that's a myriad of operators, chefs, and dietitians.
So great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciated also your approach to a transition to scratch cooking. That takes me back to my youth when we did scratch cooking here. It's a pretty wonderful thing. And as we talked about equipment that we really haven't maintained or updated over time due to financial and many other issues, how do you see that transition moving? And how soon do you think we could expect to enjoy the scratch cooking in our schools?
Well, it's just what we do. So, I mean, you will experience that from day one. It will just grow with the amount of scratch cooking that you achieve. As far as, and I think you made a point on the investment, and, certainly Chris alluded to, there's a financial investment that we're placing here, but it is our intention that, the way this works, we feed a lot more kids. There's a lot more dollars coming into the program. It grows your surplus, and at the end of the year, you have a lot of decisions that you're going to be able to make because we're going to have an ample surplus that we can talk about, and we will help you lay out what should you do with that, how to invest in those kitchens to make sure we're able to not just maintain, but actually get better each and every year.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a career and technology culinary program in the district.
What?
How would you be willing to work with them, assuming that they are interested?
I'm a little biased here, Barbara. So yes, absolutely. Not only would we want to, we would relish that opportunity. So many school districts out there have these programs. We absolutely love to partner our culinary team, and more importantly, allow those students that have an interest in what we do the opportunity to come in and get real work-life experience by partnering with us in our kitchens, learning from our chefs, helping to produce caterings, all those sorts of things. It's something when I was going to school, I didn't have that opportunity, and I certainly would have killed for it. Yes, we absolutely will partner with them.
Great, thank you. I don't remember in the actual proposal whether there are reference school districts that we can contact.
Yes.
There are.
We have a laundry list. Yep.
And you'd be fine with us, of course.
I would encourage you to.
Contacting them, I'd like to speak with many. And okay, so lastly, here's the big question. Our nutrition services team has worked their fingers to the bone. They have worked really hard and not been able to do the things that you're talking about. because of lack of resources and support and all kinds of things. Finances being one of the large ones.
Yeah.
I love what you present. Honestly, how can you do that all and stay in business?
Maybe it's because we were just naive way back when, and we just built it this way. You know, I would love to tell you there's you know a whole lot more to it. It's just what we believe in. So everybody, all the people that have spoken today, it's how we built this company. Your ladies and gentlemen in the kitchens, it's not that they don't know how to cook. It's not that they don't cook at home. It's that, you know, whether it's state agencies or, you know, fear of USDA and the moving, you know, target of regulation and guideline, it's scary. And so everybody has resorted down to just buying frozen compliant food. It's not because you have to, it's because it made it somewhat easy. But you still have the same people there that are willing to cook, and they are there the same number of hours. So we just have used that. Instead of reheating, we teach you the fundamentals of how to put together these dishes. We take more of a restaurant style approach to it. That's the business I came from. We plan ahead and look at it like we're running restaurants in these schools, and we plan accordingly to that with the prep. We're always prepped ahead a day, and it becomes part of the behavior. A lot of what the forces that work against things are just behaviors, and those are hard to change, but it happens, and it especially happens. Now, I love, you know, sort of the example. We go in and we do this, and I love after the first week that I have administrators come down and say, wow, it really works. And this, you know, this whole look of awe on their faces, that's a great moment. The better moment is when you have elementary kids coming down, giving high fives to the ladies and gentlemen in the kitchen, because that proves to them that it is worth the time. It's worth the effort to do these things the way we know we can, and the way we train them so that they are empowered to do so.
And just lastly, to bounce off that, I think I heard you say a couple times that the increase of usage has been many-fold in your other districts, and that we can probably expect the same here, and that certainly would add to the viability of the program, right?
Yes, ma'am. And you know, again, I want to compliment your current team. You know, the effort that they have put forth. You know, with, you know, Sarah spoke to the branding. We saw this and we loved it, and that's why we truly embraced it. It is the unfortunate part. There's not a single one thing that answers all the problems of how to run a successful food service program. It takes a lot, and so that's why we have brought the resources of everything from an on-site HR component to on-site marketing, nutrition, culinary, because it's all those facets together that make it successful. You know, trying to do it all on one person's shoulders or just a couple, that's an uphill battle, and it takes forever. So we know we have to invest in those resources to add that experience and knowledge to your team to make the whole program successful.
Thank you. Thank you. I very much appreciate your answers. You're taking the time with our questions and the presentation. It certainly is clear that our nutrition and our nutrition services program is essential here to our communities and to our schools and to our kids. And I appreciate that you recognize and adhere to that kind of philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think all of my questions were already answered. So I just want to say thank you to the entire SFE team for being here and for your presentation. We appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
President Ross, I have one more question, please.
Oh, sure.
You may have addressed it. How do you handle staff evaluations, and what role would that play in their future?
Jamie?
Yes, we do evaluations yearly. We do it based on the type of work that they do, and of course how they're doing it. And so we absolutely have discussions with them, try to help them grow, get better, understand what they want to do with their career, but we do speak to them annually.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again.
Members of the board, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move now to the new district assessment for 2021-2022 school year.
President Voss?
Yes.
Before we move on, could we just take a minute to make it clear that while we did hear this presentation, that no decision has been made, no recommendation at this point has been made to the board, that this was informational, kind of an opportunity to see what's available, what's out there, and what, I guess, what ways, well, I guess how some of the questions that have certainly come up can be answered. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Ms. Clementi. Okay, Superintendent Macaluso.
Thank you, President Voss. So at this time, we'll move to report number 2, which is on the K-12 assessment platform selection. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Tiffany Dan, who serves as our assessment data specialist, and Ms. Suzanne Morey. Tiffany.
Good afternoon, President Voss, Superintendent Macaluso, members of the board. I am very excited to be here to present to you information on the purchase of new K-12 assessment platforms to be implemented in the 2021-22 school year. Before we get into the platforms, I want to remind you of an item in the district strategic plan, specifically Goal 1, Objective 1, Part C, which states that we will identify new formative and summative district assessments to support effective academic progress monitoring and teacher planning for small group differentiation in literacy and math K through 12. We are excited that with this new purchase, we will be able to fulfill for the first time this part of the strategic plan. Although this isn't a formal adoption by board policy, we did follow a very similar process to curriculum adoption. We formed a task force that was composed of many different stakeholders. We had district administrators, specialists, teachers from both secondary and elementary, as well as building administrators from each level. We also wanted to ensure that a variety of students were represented by having specialists for CLDE, as well as an ESS teacher and specialist represented, so that we were able to view the new assessments from a variety of perspectives. The task force responsibility was to select new online interim and diagnostic assessments in ELA and math. While assessment terms can be confusing and used in different ways, our district is defining an interim assessment as an assessment that helps us to know how our students are performing within their current grade level and on grade level standards. They are given periodically throughout the school year and also help us to be able to predict how students will perform on required state assessments. We can also use these assessments at the district level to help us understand how our students are progressing. Diagnostic assessments dig a little deeper for us and help us to identify specific areas or skills that students need to develop in literacy and math. These assessments also help to show us how much our students have grown throughout the year. We use these to help us place students in small groups to receive additional support in their areas of need for teacher-led instruction. These types of assessments place students exactly at their individual performance level. For example, I may be a 7th grader, but I am reading at the 5th grade level. Diagnostic assessments help me to understand my exact reading level. It's important to note that these don't have to be two different assessments. In fact, the selections that we will be presenting to you today are proposing for us to use one assessment product to support us with both of these needs. What can be different about interim and diagnostic assessments is the frequency at which they're given and how the data is used. The task force also took into consideration the assessment needs of students by level, elementary, middle, and high, and the fact that all three levels may not have the same needs and therefore could potentially end up with different products. So it's important to know why we embarked on selecting new assessments, aside from the fact that it's outlined in our district strategic plan. First of all, our current interim assessments are not nationally normed. We aren't able to determine how our students are performing compared to their peers. We are not able to understand how students are growing over time. And with the exception of DIBELS, we do not have the necessary diagnostic assessments in place to identify the specific standards and skills in both literacy and math that our students are struggling with. DIBELS does not actually assess all 5 components of reading, and for all of these reasons, we are excited to purchase these new assessments. Following the process of the curriculum adoption, we put out a request for a proposal or an RFP and had 6 submissions. The task force first reviewed these, taking into consideration areas of strength and areas of potential concern. The task force also reviewed the actual platforms that house the assessments. After reviewing all 6 platforms, the task force narrowed it down to 3 finalists, which we then held a virtual stakeholder review meeting where the 3 finalists were presented to the community and feedback was obtained. This feedback was taken back to the task force and the vendors presented their products to the task force. This provided us, the task force, with the opportunity to ask questions, and following the formal presentations, the task force met to discuss strengths, areas of concern, and any additional questions. We took all of these things into consideration at the individual level for elementary, middle, and high school. In the beginning, the task force members all had their own ideas and areas of preference, but through a consensus building process, the team was able to engage in really rich dialogue, stretch each other's thinking, and ultimately all task members endorsed the same recommendations. The task force decided that each level, elementary, middle, and high school, has different needs, and we are proposing to you today 2 different platforms, one for elementary and one for secondary. We have selected iStation as our elementary platform in literacy and math, and NWEA MAPS for middle and high school in literacy and math. The task force determined that iStation would best meet the needs of our teachers, students, and families at the elementary level for both the interim and diagnostic assessment. iStation is utilized by schools in Colorado and across the nation and is a nationally normed assessment. This means that we can compare our students to students at the same grade level nationally. iStation's assessment materials align to the level and rigor of the Colorado academic standards and include CMAS-like assessment formats. iStation is also approved through the READ Act as an interim assessment, diagnostic assessment, supplement, and intervention. It is also approved through the ELAP project as one of 2 assessments that are approved for use in literacy in grades K through 3. This is important because we are an ELAT district and receive funding for the assessment and interventions in K through 3 literacy. iStation is also computer adaptive. This means the assessment will always start with a question that is the difficulty of that student's grade level. If the student answers correctly, the next question the student receives may be a little more difficult. If the student answers incorrectly, the grade level will adjust and the student will receive a less difficult question. This allows for us to find out exactly what grade level the student is actually performing at in reading and math. For example, we will be able to say with confidence that a student is reading at a 5th grade level, even though they are a 3rd grader. iStation calls their assessments indicators of student progress, or ISIP. The ISIP reading assesses each student's ability in the following areas: listening comprehension, phonemic awareness, letter knowledge, alphabetic decoding, vocabulary, spelling, comprehension, and fluency. This is significantly more comprehensive than our current K-3 literacy assessment, where iStation assesses all 5 components of reading development. The ISIP Math assesses the foundational skills for student mastery of mathematical concepts such as number sense, geometry, operations, measurement, algebra, and data analysis. Each content will be given fall, winter, and spring as a universal screener and will be followed up with monthly progress monitoring. Each assessment takes approximately 30 minutes per content area, with the results being immediately available for our teachers and students. iStation also has a vast list of accessibility and accommodation features that allow all of our students to access the assessment. Things such as Spanish version, text-to-speech, extended time are the items that our students are used to seeing on state assessments. Following the assessment, 2 very important things take place. 1, students are placed on personalized online learning pathways in reading and math based on their demonstrated ability during the assessment. Students are assigned by either the computer or their teacher specific assignments and lessons that are directly related to their performance on the assessment. They complete these assessments in their online account. In order for teachers to successfully manage a classroom, the online platform allows for engaging independent practice or as part of a rotation in the classroom, such as a follow-up to a direct lesson. It also helps teachers to effectively manage the classroom so that they can pull students for small group instruction. Second, and most critically important, teachers are able to provide direct instruction that directly supports the students' greatest areas of need. Teachers are able to pull reports and lessons to support small groups in guided reading and math. They are able to pull the specific standards and skills that each student needs in order to succeed. Differentiated small groups based on where the students are reading or the skills are lacking, including flexible small groups, to allow for flexibility for teachers to teach the students what they need to know. So as I stated, students will receive individualized instruction, whether that's accelerated or remedial. In reading, students have multiple opportunities to engage with a variety of text with increasing complexity across genres. Struggling students are routed through reteach lessons, and teachers are given instant access to reports to monitor student progress. Interactive lessons, read-alouds, digital books, and additional tools provide instructional support for all levels of student abilities. In math, students build foundational math skills in a game-like environment that provides direct instruction, opportunities for practice, formative assessments, and supportive reteach activities. They build on their number sense skills to be able to calculate and problem solve fluently, flexibly, and efficiently. iStation has an engaging platform for our students to interact with. This is an example of what students see when they log on. Students get to choose their own theme and avatar, which are different by grade levels. Here, students will access their assessments and their independent practice and lessons that their teacher has assigned. Students can access independent learning that the system automatically places the student into, even if the teacher hasn't yet assigned any specific lessons. In their online account, students are also able to access their score history and goal setting. And for students that are farther behind, iSession recommends approximately 40 minutes per week in independent practice and 30 minutes per week for our students who are on track. Next, I'd like to show you a few of iStation's data and reports. iStation has a defined 5-level normative grouping based on the 20th, 40th, 60th, and 80th percentiles. Students with an index above the 80th percentile are placed in level 5. And levels 3 through 5 are considered on track to meet grade level expectations. Students in level 2 are at some risk of not meeting grade level expectations, and students in level 1 are at significant risk of not meeting grade level expectations. Students in levels 1 and 2 are those that are recommended to spend approximately 40 minutes per week in independent practice, and students in levels 3 through 5 are recommended to spend approximately 30 minutes per week in independent practice. This is in addition to their direct small group instruction provided by their teacher. While iStation has a number of robust and useful reports for teachers and schools to use, I want to highlight just a few of them with you here today. This is a classroom report that automatically places students in tiered levels for teachers. Students who are placed in level 1 are clearly identified for teachers as being in need of critical intervention. This is a great quick report that can be used to identify students in need of additional support and group students for targeted instruction. Teachers will be able to pull the exact standard and skills students need in order to provide direct small group instruction to our students. The rate of improvement for iStation gauges the rate of student growth throughout the year by calculating the change in students' percentile rank over time. The rate of improvement can be calculated at the individual level, student, class, school, or even district level. It's a very simple format to understand, with the growth categories being broken out into low, moderate, or high. Students that receive a moderate rate of improvement are at the expected rate of improvement, and a student in this category is keeping pace with their improving peers. For the first time, we will be able to provide families real-time progress of their students in literacy and math. They will be able to see exactly what their reading and math level of their student, as well as growth throughout the year. Parents also have access to skill-building lessons that a parent can do with their child at home based on the skills identified through the child's personalized learning plans. We will need to work on a communication and training plan for our parents as we move into next school year. The task force determined that NWEA would best meet the needs of our teachers, students, and families at the secondary level. NWEA MAP growth assessments are nationally normed, valid, and reliable, and aligned to the Colorado academic standards. There are numerous districts across the nation and Colorado that use these assessments. The NWEA MAP growth assessments provide an opportunity for teachers to see how students are doing regardless of which curriculum is being used. As I mentioned, these assessments are aligned to the Colorado academic standards and are nationally normed, which means that we are able to compare how our students are performing in District 60 against other students across the nation. The assessments are given 3 times per year, but can also be given in the summer if students participate in a summer program. They take approximately 45 minutes per content to complete, with individual student scores available as soon as the student submits. Just like the iStation assessments, the NWEA assessments are computer adaptive, which means that the assessment begins with a question at each student's grade level and adjusts the level of difficulty based on individual student performance. Therefore, questions that a student receives can be above or below a student's current grade level. NWEA also has a number of accommodation and accessibility features, just as iStation does, that allows all of our students to access the assessment. The MAP growth assessments provide automatic results to quickly and accurately inform instruction so our students can grow and improve. The assessment scoring is automatic, so teachers do not need to score or grade any items, which is the reason why individual scores are available as soon as the student submits. The types of items that students will see on the assessments are similar to what students see on CMAS in our middle school students. MAP shows a student's growth over time. It shows the growth that has occurred between testing administrations, which allows for the tool to give students a projected proficiency level for state assessments. The MAP growth also follows students year after year, and having the same assessment platform 6 through 12 will allow us to track a student's growth from the 6th grade all the way through high school. NWEA's College Readiness Benchmark also lets us use MAP growth scores to predict future performance on the ACT and the SAT. We are also able to pull data by student, class, and district to not only help predict proficiency on state assessments, but to group students for differentiated instruction and engage students in mapping their own learning plan throughout the school year. One of the things the task force appreciated with the NWEA maps are the end-of-course math assessments. These tests are designed to measure specific content a student should understand after 1 year of instruction. It provides teachers with standard-specific information in algebra, geometry, and Algebra 2 courses. Next, I'll highlight just a few of NWEA's data and reporting. NWEA also has a robust student-level reports that show key results from tests that can be communicated with students and families. This example report here can indicate data across all test administrations and can include comparisons to things like the SAT assessment. This report here helps us to answer questions such as, is this student on track? What are the student's strengths and weaknesses? How can we as educators leverage those strengths and weaknesses to help this student? And what is the appropriate growth goal for this student, and what supports are needed to help this student reach this goal? NWEA also partners with industry instructional partners to allow us as a district to utilize the tools we are already using. We can use our NWEA assessment information to tie into a few of our district curriculum to allow for teachers to assign independent practice within our current curriculums. NWEA partners with our middle school math curriculum, Carnegie, and Edgenuity, which is our new online school curriculum. We can automate the assessment data to directly feed into these curriculum programs so our teachers can assign personalized learning opportunity for our secondary students. We do have some very important next steps for implementation of our new district assessments. First of all, professional development for all of our teachers and building leaders is a must. Assessment will be an area of focus for next year for our district professional development so we can ensure all teachers feel prepared for implementation and on the use of data in instruction. The professional development will begin in August and will be followed up throughout the school year next year. We are also putting together a team of leveled educators to include teachers, school administrators, and district administrators to make some recommendations surrounding our district assessment practices so we can implement these new assessments with consistency and fidelity across all schools. It is our intention that these new assessments will replace School City since it is not meeting our needs. We will also be having some very important conversations in these groups regarding the use of curriculum embedded assessments and some important discussions surrounding the DIBELS assessment, since iStation can fulfill the need of DIBELS for the REDACT and ELAP project. In order for our teachers to actually meet the differentiated needs of our students, especially for those who may have fallen behind during the pandemic, these assessments are important to identify any gaps our students have. However, time for instruction is also very important. We need to ensure that our assessment frequency and purpose is very intentional. Our goal is to ensure that our assessments are purposeful and meaningful without over-assessing our students so that teachers can do what they all love to do, and that is instruct our students. Our overall budget for the assessment platforms and professional development is $600,000 over the next 2 years. And although this is a longer-term decision, the funds will be coming from the Elementary and Secondary School Relief Fund, the ESSERS II funds, and REDACT funds. Because this is a digital platform that will be purchased as of July 1, the contracts will come through as a consent agenda at a future meeting. Several of our team members are here to answer any further questions you may have. I will now turn it back over to you, President Voss, and thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation. Dr. Wright, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, President Voss, and thank you, Ms. Day. I was looking at my notes, and you answered a lot of my questions, and I was very, very glad to see that it's going to help us with some of the gaps that we have. And I'm grateful that, as you were saying, we'll be able to assess students. It's nationally normed. They'll be able to measure their growth. So, and it meets the demand and it meets the mandates that we've been given. So I really appreciate that. So just 2 questions. One, the task force kind of flew by quickly. Do we have any principals and assistant principals on the task force?
We did. We had a number of assistant principals and principals. I think we were right about 4. We had a couple from each level, whether that was assistant principals. We ensured that elementary, middle, and high school was well represented.
Well, I just want to thank you and thank the task force so much. And Ms. Maury, you guys have been doing a great job looking at it, assessing our need, and then looking at options for us. I'm actually very excited about it. Well, I was a reading teacher also in my life. Have I not done it all for middle school? But I'm greatly to see this. And so thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. And I'm so glad we have the money to do it. So thank you.
Ms. Dan, thank you for your presentation. If you could stop sharing your screen, we would love to see your face. There you are. Thank you.
Judge Mays.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to make a couple comments. One is, Ms. Den, thank you very much for yet another example of what a fine, talented staff we have and how comprehensive they are in presenting information to the board to allow us to make decisions with a great deal of confidence in what we're doing. That is really deeply appreciated. Secondly, I want to comment how, once again, the strategic plan that we adopted and many worked on is a living document. And I was pleased, Ms. Den, that your original statement in your presentation today was, hey, here's what the strategic plan said, and here's what we're doing. So I appreciate your fidelity to the strategic plan as well. And I think this is just going to be a great opportunity for our students. Thank you.
Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, President Voss. Thank you, Ms. Den, for your presentation. And I think you hit it kind of in your summation towards the end that it sounds like these assessments have timely, detailed, and useful data that can really make an impact on a student's education, which without those things, there's no point in doing the assessment, right? So I'm glad to hear that those were in there. I do have a question for either you or whoever can answer it about the budget. I was just looking for clarification on what we saw on the slide. It said $600,000 over 2 years. Is that the total, or is it the 600,000 plus what you saw for ICE Station and NWEA?
Ms. Maury, do you want to take that question?
Absolutely. That is the total for both of those assessments together over the course of 2 years.
Okay. So those 1 year numbers that were at the bottom of that slide are part of the 600,000. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Maury. I appreciate that clarification. That's all I had.
Ms. Clementi.
Thank you. And thanks, Ms. Sten and Ms. Maury. 2 questions. One is simple, I think. I heard you say, I believe that this would replace Dibbles. Is that accurate?
So it absolutely could, but we do want to pull that stakeholder group together that will include teachers as well as administrators to really think through what is tight and what is loose with our assessments. We also have some curriculum embedded assessments. We don't want to over assess. And so it absolutely could, and it is state approved, but we do want to have that conversation and hear their recommendation on that.
Good, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And you make a good point, which leads me to my next question. And it's that I worry that we spend more time testing than we do teaching, with 3 required assessments through this, plus the individual work, plus monthly progress monitoring, plus it just goes on. And if you add Dibbles to that, then you've got a million more tests that have to happen in any classroom. So I'm glad that you have that kind of on the radar. I would hope that this could help us reduce the amount of testing and get us more information that's actually usable.
Board Member Clementi, my team and the task force shares in your concern. That's why we're so excited about this assessment platform, because we really feel like this will streamline some of the assessments that we're doing, and this absolutely could take the place of Dibbles. But we want to be thoughtful about the transition out of Dibbles.
Sure, and thank you, and best to talk to the practitioners.
Absolutely.
To figure that out. Okay, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
And no additional questions for me. So thank you, Ms. Den and Ms. Maury, for your presentation. We'll move now to our budget update.
Thank you, President Voss. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Dave Horner, and he's going to give us a budget update for 21-22. Mr. Horner.
Good afternoon. I am going to share Colorado School Finance Project came out with a update or a presentation the other day, just actually a couple days ago. This has about a 5-minute video on it related to how the budget stabilization factor really affects all the different components. So I'm going to play this, and then it talks about 3 school districts. I have the data I'll share about our school district after this plays.
Factors do not include students that are special education, emerging bilinguals, and gifted and talented. It only funds a minor number of students.
Mr. Horner, I don't know if it's just me, but I can barely hear anything on my end.
All right. Not sure whether I can increase that.
Can everybody else hear it okay?
No.
I could not hear it.
Okay.
All right, that didn't work. All right, let me go to plan B. Just a second.
I'm happy to share that for you too as well, David.
You want to try to see if you can share it and have more sound?
Sure, let's give it a shot.
Good afternoon. We wanted to make this video to help explain the spreadsheet that coincides with this information. It's important to highlight that no district has done anything that has made their situation better or worse. And this does highlight the fact, though, that the formula is dramatically underfunded, especially regarding the needs of students in school districts. The factors do not include students that are special education, emerging bilinguals, and gifted and talented. It only funds a minor number of students in poverty at a very low
Is that better
weight
for everybody?
referenced as at risk. The district factors of size and cost of living may not accurately reflect the issues of economies of scale and the cost pressures that districts are facing. Why districts look so different also depends on their state local share of revenue. Given this, it's important for school districts to know their proportional dollars in the current formula. So if changes are being contemplated, it is looked at the district level, not just at the state level. So looking at the first slide, you can see that the pie chart shows the amount of revenue going into school finance before the budget stabilization factor. And about 3/4 of it was made up into the base and 1/4 went to the factors. Now looking at it as the budget stabilization factor is in place, you've lost over half of the revenue that could go for adjustments or factors out to school districts, leaving only about $800 million of the $2 billion. As you can see in the next slide, the range among school districts is dramatically different regarding the base amount of funding that they get through the formula. The average is 63%, but the range starts from 81% down to 35%. And these ranges continue throughout the other factors in the formula. Looking at the next slide, we have chosen Cannon City as the first district to look at. It's a floor-funded district, and you can see that prior to the budget stabilization factor, it receives about 80% of its funding into the base. And the balance then of that 20% is split up through the various other factors. The unfortunate thing is, though, that given the budget stabilization factor, 64% of those 20% in factors has been removed or lost. Now let's look at the next district, Sterling. Typically, one wouldn't think Sterling and Cannon City look a lot alike, but as you can see here, their story is about the same. About 80% of its funding in the base, and a little over 61% of the 21% of the funding in factors has been lost. And the next district, Jeffco, normally would not be considered similar to these other two districts, but as you can see here, they're in the same similar situation. The important thing to realize is that thinking about these three districts would not be something that you would normally consider having the same characteristics in regards to the impact of the budget stabilization factor. This is why the link that we have attached in the next slide is really helpful, hopefully, for you to look at and become familiar with your school district so you understand what those changes may mean based upon discussions that may be happening. The next slide reflects the fact of two important programs. What is the percent of total program prior to the budget stabilization factor? Will there be additional revenue available to school districts? And will existing dollars in the current formula be rearranged? These all are going to have very different outcomes for school districts as these conversations move forward. One of the things that's important to not forget is the fact that rearranging the factors will lead districts to the base level of funding or removing any adjustments that they have for their students and their district characteristics, which creates the potential legal ramifications for the state as the districts begin to hit the base. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, would like to have further conversation, and hope that this is helpful to you as you're beginning to think about the impact of your district with potential changes to the factors.
Thanks, Zach. If you want to pull that down, I'll show our district. So do we have, did I succeed in getting our district up so you can see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so as you relate to those other three districts, you can see that before the BS factor, we had 25%, and now after we have 50%. So what I'm trying to show here is, now I got to get back out of my sharing. Are we back to, did I succeed, I guess is the question of getting out of my sharing.
Yes.
All right. One of the things that's going on right now, I've got a little statement that was provided to me that I got too many screens going here. Pardon, just 1 second. So the legislature's still meeting. We don't have anything more than what the governor has proposed to us for funding. And then this is kind of one of the updates as I was trying to get a little more information so I can, refine our budget a little bit. And the legislature is wanting to use some of the stimulus dollars for their legislation. They don't actually have any say over these dollars. So if they don't get approval for these dollars, then they have to determine if they have other dollars to use for their bills, or if it comes from dollars allocated to K-12, which means that the BS factor isn't reduced as much. They're all waiting to hear from the Supreme Court about the 90 million, which is that tax component. And some are wanting these dollars for the legislature or arranging factors in the formula. So there are multiple scenarios right now which cause the various outcomes. And their statement is, I'm afraid I'm not much help. So as I was trying to figure out where are we at for actually providing a budget that makes sense, we don't have any more knowledge yet. We continue to monitor and watch. We will start presenting you a document probably at the next meeting with the best data that we have, by the middle of next week or so. And then we'll end up, we'll have to adopt a budget with whatever our best data is by the 22nd of June. So that's my short update for this week. That I don't know a lot more than I knew last week, I guess, is the bottom line right now from our funding side. Be glad to answer any questions if I can.
Dr. Wright, any questions or comments?
Thank you, President Voss. Thank you, Mr. Horner. My question has to do with a statement she made, and this may not be the arena to explain it to me, but what is it meant by floor funded district?
There is 90, I'm checking. So there's a minimum funding that is at, based off of the previous years, it's 94.3% of the state average. So you get base funding plus some other factors to end up, and that's, floor funded. So it's how they work their formula.
Okay, thank you very much.
Judge Mays.
Thank you, President Voss. Mr. Horner, I'm going to make a statement. Tell me if it's accurate or if not. Correct me. But as I understand it, once we started dealing, or maybe even before we started dealing with the budget stabilization factor, or the BS factor, as we all know it by, is that when our funding for each individual school district started going down dramatically?
That is correct. It was a negative factor first, then the name was changed. And we are currently, I believe it's like $184 million short for us. We're shorted about between 10 and 13 million a year out of what the actual formula is required, because they don't have the cash.
Thank you. That answers one of my questions. And the next question I have is, when we get our allocation from the state, do they parcel it out in various buckets? You get this much for instruction, you get this much for capital projects, or do they send us our check and say, do whatever you're going to do, and this is all you're getting to do it with?
There is allocations, but it's all in one bucket, and then we determine, other than there's special education and a few identified things, but primarily it's a bucket for us to figure out how to take care of all their needs.
And that's where the 185 million deficit over the years has accrued?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Farrell.
Thank you, President Voss. I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mr. Horner, for presenting that information from the school finance project, though. That was informative and helpful. Thank you.
Ms. Clementi.
Thank you. Mr. Horner, I just want to, I guess, embellish a little bit on what you say. $184 million is a lot of dollars. And if I remember accurately, our next year's seniors, this has gone on for long enough that our next year's seniors will have never experienced a fully funded school district. That's true across the state, but I believe it's true for ours as well, and I think that's just shameful. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Mr. Horner.
Great.
We'll move now to 8.0. We have a Colorado Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation. Dr. Wright.
Thank you, President Voss. The Board of Education is asked to acknowledge the Colorado Teacher Appreciation Week, May 3rd through 7th, 2021, during National Teacher Appreciation Week. This week in May is designated as a special time to honor the men and women who lend their passionate skills to educating our children. Colorado Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation, May 3rd through 7th, 2021. Whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education, and whereas teachers encounter students of widely differing backgrounds, and whereas our country's future depends upon providing quality education to all students, and whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing community service, and whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of this community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pueblo School District number 60 Board of Education proclaims May 3rd through 7th, 2021 to be Colorado Teacher Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Pueblo School District number 60 Board of Education strongly encourages all members of our community to join with it in personally expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work. The Board of Education proclaims May 3rd through 7th, 2021 as Colorado Teacher Appreciation Week as presented in the May 6, 2021 board materials, and I make a motion that we accept this proclamation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Second.
I'll call the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi?
Aye.
Mr. Farrell?
Aye.
Judge Mays?
Aye.
Mr. Voss?
Aye.
Dr. Wright?
Aye.
We'll move now to 11.0, the consent agenda. Are there any questions about any consent agenda items?
President Voss, I don't have a question, but is it permissible at this time for me to discuss one of the items that is on the consent agenda?
Sure.
Superintendent Macaluso, President Voss, esteemed board members, and Mr. Bump. I'm going to read a rather detailed response concerning the report filed by CBAC and the recommendations and resolutions that they attached to their report as well. I'm also going to be responding to the article that was published in the Pueblo Chieftain today as a result of CBAC's concerns. CBAC is chaired by Mr. Ken Lane, who was the person quoted in today's article. My purpose is to clarify glaring, unfounded, and indefensible statements made by CBAC. And as an aside, I hope there were members of CBAC that had the opportunity to listen to Mr. Horner's report about the budget stabilization factor and that the negative factor before that, and how it's come that our school district in Pueblo alone is in the hole $185 million because of inadequate funding by the state. These statements that I'm making are not the official response of the board and should be attributable to me personally as an elected school board member. To the extent some of my comments are blunt, it is not by accident, but is intentional. If anyone has concerns, they should be addressed to me. Let me start with a direct quote from Mr. Lane. He said, quote, "I was one of the most vocal opponents when the district tried to close East High School, which quite frankly was a stalking horse because their ultimate plan was to close all 4 high schools and build 2 new super high schools. Mr. Lane believes if he spreads this information enough, it will become true. Not so. I challenge Mr. Lane to provide proof that the district ever tried to close East, and I challenge Mr. Lane to provide proof supporting his statement that the district had already decided to build 2 super high schools. By proof, I mean facts, not personal opinions. He cannot give them because they do not exist. There were a number of options that were presented to this community about what the school's bond should look like and what should be eventually developed. He expressed his concern about how a new K-8 school would be able to hold a larger number of students when one of the main reasons Heroes Academy closed was because enrollment was dropping. The truth is, Heroes was closed due to the excessive cost of repairs needed to address only the critical needs in the amount of $18 million. Full school restoration would have cost approximately 2 to 3 times that amount. Additionally, there is not a middle school on the west side of town, and now it will have one without costing the taxpayers 1 additional penny. CBAC's options for the money instead of building a new school pale in comparison to what the new school will accomplish. He suggested that the, quote, committee, quote, believes the excess bond funds could have gone toward repairs that would keep schools open to begin with. Heroes will be open. for probably 50 years in an area of town desperately in need of a middle school. Importantly forgotten in the discussion is that the district needed $700 million to make the repairs in all the schools. Using the additional proceeds to address the massive needs of the other schools through a Band-Aid approach would not guarantee other schools will not have to be closed. With regard to future closures, those decisions will be made by the board if and when they are presented to the board, and this board would be remiss in attempting to provide decisions that any previous boards would not be obligated to follow. Lane further states, the district made it pretty clear to us that there was never a plan B for this money. They never considered options for repairing other schools or additional upgrades. Once again, Mr. Lane is wrong. To begin with, there is no plan B because the bond initiative spells out specifically what the bond money is for. The district in its exclusive authority determined the best use of any so-called surplus funds would best be used in the construction of a new K-8 school. CBAC is in possession of an opinion from our bond counsel that the funds could be legally used for that purpose. Because the committee may have a different opinion for its use, does not lend itself to the comment that serious consideration was given. That was the decision they did not want to perhaps hear, but that was a decision that was lawfully and legally reached. And by the way, the report of the CBAC did not contain, nor was it necessary for it to contain, but for full disclosure, it probably should have included the letter from our school council and our bond council. What the Chieftain article failed to adequately cover was the district's response to the various authority and responsibilities of the district and CBAC. Now, if CBAC has a legal opinion that says otherwise, it should provide it to the district. CBAC's feelings were hurt because the district did not advise it of the decision to build Heroes. The district is not legally required to notify CBAC of its decisions. CBAC's purpose is to monitor and review whether the bond funds are being used for the purpose intended. What has not been discussed is the effort CBAC has undertaken to accomplish its charge, including preparing their own spreadsheet with the help of one of their members, providing from his business the accounting skills necessary to review bond expenditures. That's not meant as a criticism. That is meant as that is meant to provide the amount of depth that they're going into this thing so that they cannot say that they are surprised by some, maybe instead of buying 5 doorknobs, we bought 6 doorknobs. In its January meeting, Mr. Lane posed the following question to the members present, quote, what is your opinion as to whether the bond expenditures in 2020 are consistent with the purposes and mandates of the voter-approved bond and otherwise consistent with the district's planned facility capital repairs and replacements as outlined to the public and to this committee, end quote. The 6 members present all concurred that they did not see anything inconsistent with the guidelines, nor will they, because the district has every intention of honoring the community's wishes and presenting everything in a transparent fashion. Also of interest is CBAC's concern that they did not receive prior notice concerning Heroes, yet they did not raise the same concern when the district decided to select Franklin and Sunset as the 2 elementary schools to be constructed with the best grants, which were aborted because of the passage of the bond initiative. So they seem to want to be able to pick and choose what their battles are going to be against the school board. Lane raised the issue of declining enrollment, which is a critical concern of all districts. What he failed to mention is that he was very adamant in building high schools that would accommodate 1,100 to 1,200 students. There is not one high school in Pueblo D60 that has in excess of 1,000 students. To suggest that money should be placed in reserve to accommodate future repairs ignores the fact that there is no special funding for capital projects, and the district, like all other districts, is severely underfunded. Others can address the negative factor and budget stabilization factor if they wish, and think it's important to elaborate on that. On the issue of transparency, It runs both ways, folks. On the night CBAC first discussed the HEROES decision, I was contacted by a CBAC member to give me a heads up that their concerns would be forthcoming. The member and I did not discuss the issue. However, because I wanted to receive clarification on certain statements made by the member, I placed 3 phone calls, one on 3 successive days each, to the member, left my name, left my phone number, left my contact information, and the person doesn't need it because they have it anyway. To this day, I have not received a return call. I also questioned CBAC's motive for sending the board a written report instead of reporting in person or by Zoom, which has been their practice in the past. Had it done so, we could be addressing these concerns today face to face and eye to eye. I refuse to spend my time listening to minutia and nitpicking. Rather, I will spend it talking about the courageous decision the previous board made in placing the issue on the ballot, understanding the work it had ahead, and perhaps the heartache that would go along with trying to get the issue passed. I will spend the time being eternally grateful to the generosity and wisdom of the D60 electorate in blessing the district with this phenomenal achievement of turning 2 schools into 5 because of the outstanding fiscal planning, project managing, and investment practices of D60 staff, and primarily Dave Horner and Bob Lawson. I will continue to be thankful that the West Side community will once again have a middle school with the state-of-art amenities. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Judge Mays. I will move that we approve consent agenda items 2 through 4 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi?
Aye.
Mr. Farrell?
Aye.
Judge Mays?
Aye.
Mr. Voss?
Aye.
Dr. Wright?
Aye.
We'll move now to 12.0 action items. Superintendent Macaluso.
Thank you, President Voss. I would at this time ask that the Board of Education consider the following leadership appointment recommendations. I would recommend that Jennifer Farias, who currently serves as specialist for a multi-tiered system of supports in the Department of Student Support Services, be named to Assistant Principal, East High School, effective August 2nd, 2021. In addition, I would ask that Mrs. Susan Foster, who currently serves as ESS teacher at Morton Elementary School, to serve as Assistant Principal, Pueblo Academy of Arts, effective August 2nd, 2021. Thank you, President Voss.
Thank you. And with that, I will move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for administrative appointments as presented in tonight's board materials.
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the vote, please.
Ms. Clementi?
Aye.
Mr. Farrell?
Aye.
Judge Mays?
Aye.
Mr. Voss?
Aye.
Dr. Wright?
Aye.
Congratulations. Is there any other business from the board? All right, then at 4:49 p.m. we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you.